Hello everyone, I think it's going to be the last day of the wild rose season, so I just want to show you how to pick them. We had a big thunderstorm recently and it lasted for about 6 days, so all the rose petals were wet, but they're finally drying out, so we'll be able to pick some. So I find the best way to harvest wild rose petals is just to grab them all around like this and then just pull gently, and it kind of leaves the bugs in the middle of the flower, not on your petals. And then I always collect them in a nice little plastic bag, keep them good, and so we can just wander around. I always check for bugs because, as you can see, lots of different bugs around the petals. And there's lots of spiders that hide underneath the petals, and I don't want to be stung or bitten by spiders, so I just be conscientious of that. So you just take a little look around, check it out, see if there's any spiders hiding underneath, but if not, then what you do is just go and grab around like this and pull it off. So I think that's the best method to harvest these, I find, because sometimes there's little bugs in the center. Oh, Ophelia's joining the party. Okay, that's fine. Good enough. She thinks I saw something, but I didn't. That's okay. Yeah, just go and grab around like this and pull the petals off. The more pink they are, the better it is, but if they end up getting a little bit lighter, that's okay too. Just means that they won't be as flavorful when you boil them. But I find a good mix is alright. So I'm going to just scrounge up as many of these last little wild roses as I can, and then I will show you how to make some rose petal jam. So see you soon. Alright, hello everyone. So we're back inside now, and this is just the rose petals I got from the bag. So what we're going to do is get them marinating in this Tupperware. So I have about a cup of sugar here, but it's very dependent on how many rose petals you get. But I think a cup should be okay for what we're up to now. So all we're going to do is we're going to scoop some sugar into our little Tupperware here, and we're just going to layer a couple rose petals on, nice and flat. So a couple rose petals, a bit of sugar, and we'll just try to layer all of the rose petals and sugar together. As you can see, we're just making a nice little layer here. So we'll just go and cover the rose petals with sugar, and then we'll put some more rose petals on, just like this. Give it a nice little sprinkle and add some more sugar. So the problem with this is you can't really wash the rose petals, otherwise they just rot in the sugar. So that's why it sucks when it rains so much. Very annoying when they're wet. And also you can't, you have to have clean hands while you're picking them. So if you get anything on your hands, just go and wash your hands the best you can and then keep picking, because there's no way to really wash the rose petals without deteriorating the flavor and making it go bad faster. So what I tend to do is I pick them as I was showing you by grabbing them around, and then you don't have very many bugs in it. And just while you're layering, you can also see if there's any bugs in it. But I find when I just go and pick them around, there's not that many bugs hiding in the rose petals. But maybe that's just because I've been doing it for a couple of years. So you do the best you can, but if you wash the roses, it will be less flavorful rose jam, and they'll just kind of go brown and rotten. We want to make the rose jam nice and pink. So that's the fun part about that. Yeah, we're just going to do some nice layering here. Doesn't have to be fully covered, just because we don't want too much sugar in it, but definitely need a little bit. I didn't get as many rose petals as I wanted this year, but we are going to do the best with what we have, and I think we're going to make a nice little batch of jam. It's super fun, and so I don't use pectin in my rose petal jam because I used it once and it kind of tasted like Jello, and I didn't really like the flavor of it, so I just don't use pectin. And so, as some people know, rose petals don't have much natural pectin in it, so it doesn't really jelly up. So if you want like more of a rose jelly or like a marmalade, you'll have to add pectin, but I can't give you recommendations just because I keep trying and I don't really like any of the ones that I've tried. But if you can find it, you're more than welcome to use that. But I just melt it down, and it's more of, I guess, like a honey or a syrup with rose petal chunks in it. And again, you can strain out the chunks, so you can have like pure rose petal syrup if you'd like, but I kind of like leaving the rose petals in there. It makes it a little bit more textured and interesting in the jar and on your toast or whatever you put it on. Yeah, we're just going to keep on layering up here. I think a cup of sugar is just about perfect for how many rose petals I got. So I got about half a Ziploc bag full of rose petals, and I think 1 cup of white sugar's just about good. So I'd go like 2 cups of rose petals to 1 cup of sugar. Just do the best you can with what you have. I'm just going to go and dump the rest of this on, spread it around a little bit, and now it'll be all sealed in the jar. So I wouldn't use metal because that might alter the flavor a little bit. Plastic or glass is perfectly fine. Alright, so here we go, our lovely little rose petal Tupperware full of rose petal and sugar. So we're just going to let that marinate for a while. So it depends on the day how much I let it marinate for, but I'm going to leave this one for about 2 days maybe, and then we will make some rose petal jam with it. So I'll see you soon. Alrighty, so today we've got a bit of a different angle going on because I just want to show you what's going to be happening in the pot as we make our rose jam. So we've just got an empty pot and we're going to turn it on about medium high to start out with, and then we're going to put 1 cup of water to start with into the pan. And the less water you do, the less you'll have to boil the water out, but if you add more water accidentally, just boil it off a little bit longer. No problem at all. But for now, we're just going to add a bit of water, and then we're going to add our rose petals. So these are marinated rose petals that we did yesterday, so they're looking a little bit flatter and a little bit more wet. So now we are going to put our rose petals and sugar into the pot with the water. Here we go. Everything is all ready to go in, and we start in our rose petal jam. It smells a lot more fragrant today, just because it's been marinating for 2 days now. But we are getting ready to make a rose petal jam. Very exciting. I'll get out all of this nice rose flavored sugar. If you want just rose sugar, you can just do this and then it'll be rose sugar as well, which is quite nice, but I like making the rose petal jam. So we're just going to boil it with some water until it becomes sticky. So we're going to go until the rose petals are clear, and you will see what that looks like in a little while here. But yeah, the less water you start out with, the less water you need to boil off. If it ends up being too much for your batch, just boil it longer. Not a big deal. Alright. Looking pretty good so far. So just to be gentle on the roses, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer since it's starting to boil. And we will just let it boil for a while until the rose petals are clear and this liquid, the water-sugar mixture, turns more brown. So we'll see you in a couple minutes. Alright, so it's been about 30 minutes now, and as you can see, the rose petals are a lot more translucent. I ended up putting about 2 extra cups of water in there because the rose petals weren't translucent and it was getting too hard like candy. And so, yeah, just keep adding water if you need to, but I don't start out with a huge bucket full, otherwise it takes forever to boil. But yeah, so I ended up using about 3 cups of water for this just to get the rose petals translucent. So when they're translucent, all of the flavor of the roses is now in the sugar water. And if you'd like, you can strain it and make pure rose syrup with no chunks in it, but I kind of like the added rose petals in it for texture. All up to you though, so you can definitely strain it if you'd like, or you can keep it like this. So since they're translucent, we're going to do a plate test to see if it's sticky enough to be ready. And so what you do with that is you just throw a plate in the freezer, and then we'll put a dollop of our nice rose petal syrup and see if it's ready to can. So let's go get our plate. Lovely freezer plate here. There we go. And we're going to put a dollop on just with your spatula. And what we'll do with this is we will just run our finger through it when it's cool. So as you can see, it's really quite liquidy still. So we're going to let it boil for a little bit more. But as you can see, I put more water in because it got too hard there. But yeah, so all you do is you just grab a tiny little bit of rose petal syrup and you dollop it on your plate, and then when it's slightly cooled you run your finger through it, and if it's not very sticky yet we will continue on boiling. So I will see you in a couple more minutes, see if it boils a little bit better by then. Alright, so it's starting to look really good, and we're just going to do our plate test one more time just to make sure it's all perfect, and then it should be almost ready to can. So let's see. Alrighty, so we will grab some nice rose petal syrup. We will dollop it on our plate just like this, and then we will see if it's ready. So we'll just wait a second for it to cool because we don't want to burn ourselves on the hot sugar. Then we just kind of run our finger through it. So as you can see, it's a lot more sticky, and so I think it's just about ready to can. You can have it less sticky if you'd like, you can make it a little bit more sticky, but I think that's pretty good stickiness for us because we're going to add a little bit of lemon juice and then it'll become slightly less sticky. So I've got my fake lemon ball here, and we're just going to add about a tablespoon in there. Not that much. We'll stir it in, and then it should return to its bright pink color. It's always my favorite part. Sometimes it goes really brown. On the camera this time it looked pink, but sometimes you get it really brown, but now it's like bright pink again. So I always love adding the lemon juice, my favorite part. And you can use any citrus. You can use lime, orange juice, whatever you'd like, but just about a tablespoon of it. And then it returns to nice bright pink color. Alright, last little plate test. See how it's going. Wait for it to cool. Just give it a tilt so that it cools a little bit faster. There we go. And running our finger through it, looking good to me. So now it should be ready to can. Alright, so we have our canning bucket here. It's just a pot on the stove with a bunch of canning lid rings layered onto the bottom with 3 canning jars on top. So you can't let the glasses touch each other or the bottom of the pot, otherwise they'll explode. Maybe, possibly. Haven't tried it yet, but don't want to. And so I just boil it with water for about 10 minutes to start off with, just to make sure they're all sterilized. And then we go in with our tongs and we just grab a nice canning jar out. We will put it on our cutting board over here and start canning. Alright, here we go. There is our canning jar, very nice and hot. And then we will get both of the other jars out and we will get our wild rose petal jam inside the jars. Alright, so we've got our boiling hot canning jars here, and then our boiling hot sugar syrup. As most bakers know, different temperatures lead to explosions, so that's why I boil the jar lids to sterilize them. And so we will get our rose petal jam into the jars. Here we go. There's one of them. And here we go. Here's another one of them. Alright, so it looks like we're getting 2 out of this. I always like to over sterilize rather than under sterilize just to make sure I have enough. Okay, here we go. And so for boiling, it's taken about 44 minutes to get to the point where I wanted it to be, and that was just with the gentle boiling, but it is tasting fantastic, it's looking fantastic. It's very nice and lemony and rosy, which I love. So now that we've got everything put away, we have a little bit of headspace in the jars here because it needs a little bit of air in order to seal properly. So that's lovely. And then we're going to get our 2 nice canning lids. We're going to dunk them in the sterilizer for about 30 seconds each, and then we will put them on these jars. Alright, so we've dunked one, and I'm just going to use this towel here to put it on top. Make sure I don't burn myself. I do not have the hot hands yet required to do this. One day I will. Anyway, here we go with one, and then I will be back with the other. Alright, I am back, and now we're just going to use our towel again to go and put the lid on the jars. There we go. Here we are, and there we go. So we just need it fingertip tight, but I'd get it a little bit tight because we don't want water seeping through and just getting rid of all of our jam. Then we'd have water-filled jars, that would suck. So now that they are all nice and sealed and ready to go, we are just going to grab them by the lids because they're still boiling hot, and we're going to put them back in our canning bucket here on the stove. Alright, so now that it's been 15 minutes, we're just going to take them out of our water canning bath with our nice tongs here. Get a good grip on the sides and just pour off the water on the top. We're going to take them over to our cutting board. Alright, so now they're on our cutting board, and we're just going to wait to see if our seal pops. So when you get jam at the store, you know how you unseal it and it makes a popping noise? So we're just waiting for them to pop down. So I'm just going to dab all the water off the top of this one, and hopefully it will pop down soon. Just going to let it go for a minute, and then hopefully you'll be able to see and hear these pop down. Yay! One's all popped down nicely, so successfully canned, so we're just waiting for this one to pop down. Yay! So as we can see, you can't push this down anymore. Yay! The other one popped too! So nice. I always love when it works. So if they don't pop down, you can water bath it again, but it's just so nice when they work. So then when we open it, it should unpop and the seal will be broken, but now they are all pressurized and should be staying good. And as you can see, they are bright and beautifully pink. They are still very hot, so I'm just going to show with our lovely cloth here. Yeah, check out how beautiful they look. You know, I love trying things on camera, but these are way too hot to try right now. So I will pop them open and we'll make some fun recipes with them in the coming weeks. But pretty cool to start out with. Very exciting. Alright, well, thank you everyone for being here while I make my rose petal jam. So as you can see, I left the rose petals in there. Very beautiful, bright color. But I'm very excited to see in the upcoming weeks what we end up doing with it. So very exciting. Keep on watching the videos to see what I make with it, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye!